Hello, everybody. This is Alan at Alan Talks FinTech. Today, I want to talk a little bit about my financial history and talk about some of the lessons I've learned that may help you going forward. All right, let's get started. Um, I was born in the early 1960s and graduated high school in the late 70s. Went through college and graduated around 1982. Now, during all that time, I lived in the state of Maine, lived on the coast. I was able to dig clams, go lobster fishing, and as a result, I was able to save about $10,000 or more. And I actually bought my first two cars with cash. So the first car was a Chevy Vega, $2,000. And then the second car was a little Dodge pickup that I paid cash for when I was about 18. And then when I graduated college, I went to work for the government. I worked for the federal government in Battle Creek, Michigan. And then I also went back to college to get a master's degree. While I was working for the federal government, I was going to school part time, starting to work on my master's. And about 1987, a guy at work said, "Hey, you ought to go back to college full time." So I started applying to different colleges. Ohio State accepted me into their master's program, uh, got a fellowship, teaching assistantship. So they basically paid me to go to school. And so I quit my government job, moved to Battle Creek, Michigan, and graduated in about 1990. Now, during those first 10 years of from 1980 to 1990, basically I didn't really save a whole lot. The government had a tax savings plan as they were transitioning from the traditional pension into kind of a early form of 401ks, and I started investing in it, but not that much. I really only invested about $4,000 over about 5 years. But what I did come out of that first decade was I finally got a computer science degree, which really set me up going forward. The downside of it was here I am 30 years old, got a master's degree, $4,000 in savings, so I didn't really have a whole lot. But my first job out of college was I joined IBM in upstate New York, and I basically worked for IBM and L'Oreal all the way up to about 2003. And that's really where the financial part started to grow for me. I bought a house when I lived in upstate New York, and then we moved to Columbus, Ohio, bought another house back in 1997, $165,000 new, got a 30-year loan, and then we'll talk about that loan a little bit later. So basically, I worked for IBM for about 13 years, and during that time, I was able to save between me and my wife was working at a local hospital. We saved probably about $250,000 all in 401k, pension, and stock between the two of us. So if you look at it, 23 years in, $250,000, which isn't really that much compared to what you could do today, but it was a start. Not going to retire early or anything like that on that, but that's what it was. And then I quit IBM in 2003. Um, I joined Chase for about a year and a half, and then I joined my current company, which is an insurance company. And I've been in that job for about 13 years. And during that time, I've been able to save probably another $750,000, or the actual amount that we saved is far less than that. It's really the compounding of the earlier money with additional money that we've saved, counting our pensions and things like that. So I'd say we added about another $750,000 by the time as of today. So one of the things I want to talk a little bit about my house. So I bought that house in 1997. I didn't have a lot of money to put into it, so I paid PMI, um, and I probably put about 3% down. And we were paying probably $1,200 a month with property taxes at the beginning. And then about 5 years in, the bank called me up, said, "Hey, would you like to refinance?" And I said, "Okay, well, tell me more about it." And we looked at it, and the interest rate went down. So uh, for a 15-year loan, so we decided, well, let's go with a 15-year loan, lower interest rate, had the house reevaluated, reassessed, got rid of the PMI, and basically I got a 15-year loan with about the same payment as I was paying for the 30-year loan. So altogether, we paid on that house for about 20 years, and I paid it off in 2017. And today we have no debt. We're living debt free. So, summarize, during the 70s, going to school, starting to dig clams, lobster fishing, saved about $10,000, living at home, bought my first two cars with cash, and I started college. And probably cash wise, that's probably the most I ever had was at that time for quite a while, probably for the next 20 years. My savings account at least probably stayed around $10,000. In the 80s, went to college twice, saved about $4,000, got my first jobs, but that's basically all I had by the 1990. And then I'd say I started doing a lot better once I joined IBM. So that college degree paid off, got you in the door. IBM was a good company as far as providing investments in stock and pension and things like that. So it was getting me started. But basically, after about 23 years, had $250,000 worth of savings. Not a whole lot, compared to what some people do today, but that's what it was. And then um, in the 2000s, basically, another new job, more 401k, more pension, no debt, paid off my house, and that really allowed, what I have to actually grow. Having no debt really is a big thing. When you pay off your house, no car payments, no college, no kids are gone, you know, you can really start saving. But the downside of it, I would have had a lot more if I'd saved more in the 1980s and maybe even in the early 1990s. So what I think you'll find for most people, the typical life is kind of like this. At first, you're focused on college, then getting that first job, getting married, having kids. And really, that college degree basically just gets you in the door. That's what it does for you. Get you that first job. And then you'll come out of that whole experience with a lot of college debt, house payments, cars, and kids. And that's where most of your money's going to go. So your saving may be very low for a long time. It could be 15, 20 years where you're basically trying to pay off your debt. And it doesn't leave a lot left over to invest and build your wealth. Kind of a mistake, because actually it'd be better for you to invest even way back then. The more you save, the earlier, the better. And so for most people, and especially like me, the wealth building phase of your life really comes later. Really comes later as you pay off your debt. Your income goes up, your debt goes down. Now you start building wealth. And you got to really save a lot more later in life than if you'd done it earlier in life. So here's some of the lessons learned from my experience. Get a college degree that pays. Get it early. So I didn't get my college degree or my computer science degree until I was about 30. If I'd done it maybe about 8 years earlier, I'd been a lot further ahead. But that's the way it was for me. Pay your debt off as fast as you can, because debt keeps you from investing. It keeps you from building wealth. So the sooner you can get rid of that debt, the more you can put money into investing. Also, invest early. Even $5,000 a year in your 20s, you are going to be so much further ahead than waiting till you're 35. Believe me. So do it automatically. Take it out of your paycheck so you don't even see it. Be aggressive early. In your 20s and 30s, invest aggressively. You have a long time to make up for market downturns. And one of the things I've learned is you got to kind of stay in the market. Also, record how much you spend, record how much you invest. Because when you look back in the future, you know, when you're my age, you look back, you say, what was I spending money on? How much was I spending? How much was I investing? If you don't have it all recorded, it just kind of forgot about all of that over 30 years. So it really helps to know and record all of that. Helps you make better decisions as you go along. Well, in the past, I invested this way. I did all right. Maybe I should continue that. Or I invested a different way and I did poorly. Maybe I shouldn't do it that way. And then also you can use that information to teach your kids, you know, what works and what doesn't work. Also, build your network of coworkers. The people you work with early in your career will probably be people that help you find jobs in other companies. As they move around and you decide to move, you'll probably know somebody in another company that you want to go work for, and they'll help you get that job. Always be learning. I went to college all the way up through the 30s, so that's evident. But basically, when you're in the technology field, the financial field, medical field, you basically have to be learning all the time because technology and advances come pretty quickly. The other thing I'd say is you need to buy for the future. So think about everything you buy as an investment. You know, you might buy a coat. Buy a good quality coat, one that will last 10, 15 years, looks nice, will look nice 10, 15 years from now. That way you don't have to keep turning over clothing and stuff like that. Same thing with your car. You know, buy a car that's going to last 10 to 15 years. You may have car payments for, say, 4 years, but think about that. The next 10 years, you'll be free and clear except for repairs. Also, look for additional income. So that's one thing I'm trying to do lately is think more about dividend investing, making money online, selling stuff, things like that. And that really comes in handy because there'll be a point in your career where you may lose your job or be in danger of losing your job. So if you have any additional income, that's really going to help. And then it also allows you to walk away from your job. If you decide, hey, I've had enough of this, I'm going to walk away, maybe go look for another job or something like that. If you have additional income on the side, that helps that transition or maybe helps your early retirement. Also, become debt free. So do it as soon as you can, as early as you can. Pay off your house, pay off your cars, pay off your debt. Once you become debt free, you really become free. Free to live the life you want to live, do the things you want to do, invest more, and basically it reduces a lot of stress from your life. And also, most importantly, teach your kids. Teach your kids about finances. In the 70s, 80s, even the early 90s, there wasn't a lot of information out there for me. Basically, the mantra of your parents is save money into a savings account and, you know, try not to spend too much. That was basically the only financial advice that we ever got. but nothing about investing, nothing about stocks or compounding or anything like that. So today, people know so much more because so much more information is online. Make sure you pass that on to your kids. Also, build a financial legacy. So the wealth that you're building over your years, more than likely your kids or grandkids are going to inherit that. Gone are the days of pensions. When people with traditional pensions, when they died, the money went away. So what did the kids inherit? House, maybe some property, maybe a little bit of money. But these days, with 401ks and IRAs, when you die, you could have a big lump sum of money that they're going to inherit. So you got to think about, where's that going? All right. So just want to talk a little bit about differences between when I was young and today. So back in the old days, my old days, the only financial information was in books. There wasn't any education at school. There was no internet back then. And there wasn't a lot of information available other than your parents, who basically were post World War II, save money, don't spend a lot, put your money in a savings account. That was it. Nothing about investing, nothing about stocks, nothing about compounding. So there wasn't a lot of information available. And, people back in those days, they're mainly dependent on Social Security, pensions from their company, maybe some stock. Problem with Social Security and pension is when they die, basically all that goes away. So in the 90s, the 401ks started to replace traditional pensions. So the problem with that is we weren't really ready or knowledgeable enough to know what to do with those things, how to invest, how much to invest, and things like that. So it took probably a good decade before people knew what they were doing with this. So there was kind of this, 7 to 10 years of, I have a 401k, not sure how much to save, not sure where to invest it. I'll just put it in some mutual fund that sounds okay. That's basically how it went. Now, when you got later, around 2000, information started becoming more available, more better decisions around investing. So later in the 90s, you had online trading, Scottrade, places like that, and the knowledge started to come to people. So especially when you get to the early 2000s, people were starting to invest a lot. Now, there was the internet boom and bust of the early 2000s, but people were starting to invest, starting to learn. Index funds were coming into being. People were investing in stocks a little bit more. But it was really the beginning of, I'd say, a financial boom for a lot of people. Now, in the last decade, lots of information. YouTube, blogs, Robinhood, things like that, online apps, apps on your phone. So there's a lot more information available. So you could spend a month watching YouTube videos on personal finance and you'll know 100 times more than the people from the 70s and 80s and earlier generations. Of course, if you were in wealthy families back in those days, you probably knew that stuff. Or if your family was in the financial industry, like Warren Buffett, they probably knew, but the average person didn't know. So today, we're a lot further ahead, a lot more knowledge. Take advantage of it. So now, financial literacy is available to the masses. So really, the gap between rich and poor really should decrease. So that's basically what I wanted to share with people. If you have any comments, leave them in the comments below. If I helped you at all or entertained you, hit the subscribe button or hit the like button. We'll be talking about some financial topics in the future in a little different way from the 20, early 30-year-olds that are doing YouTube's videos right now. Try to do a little differently, give you a little bit more historical perspective, what I found worked that didn't work. So we'll look for more videos in the near future. All right, well, thanks. Thanks for spending time with me.